Welcome one, welcome all. My name is Karen A. I'm here in Jerusalem with the Afro-Euro Reco12 podcast. Reco12 is a family of recovery resources, a family of fellows, intelligent agents, spearheads of God's everlasting creation who have found recovery in all fellowships, all addictions, all afflictions through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you would like to check out our family of recovery resources, you could go to reco12.com. We've got a bunch of recorded meetings from all around the globe, all fellowships, or many fellowships. Add yours if you'd like, up there. If you'd like to contribute a seventh tradition, and we appreciate if you do that because there are costs for keeping up these Zoom meetings and technicals, you could do so at reco12.com/support. If you would like to share on Reco12, if you've got a message of depth and weight, recovery, strength, experience, strength, and hope, reach out to me. I'll put my number in the chat, or hit us up through the website. You could record a sample share with the SpeakPipe technology, or you could reach out to myself or Justin, our humble servant who founded Reco12. It is my honor and my privilege today to invite to you Sam L. from England, who is going to be sharing on the topic of a decade in recovery. Wow, I think that just about makes us sisters or even twins. I've been around for a decade as well. So isn't that amazing? We're all so different, from different cultures, different places, different religions, and yet we're related. Sam will share with us her experience, strength, and hope. I'll encourage you to write down your questions in the chat, and we'll take them afterwards. You could just type them in as she goes if you're worried you'll forget. And Sam, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that makes this podcast possible. It's an honor and a privilege to do these shares. And I've only got one story, and that's of a decade of recovery, but one day at a time. That's all I have, 24 hours of daily reprieve. So I am Sam, and I am a recovered addict, only by the grace of God and the 12-step fellowship. My sobriety date is the 1st of September 2014. And my home group, I live in Gloucestershire. My home group is St Pauls in Cheltenham. It's a Cocaine Anonymous group. I love Cocaine Anonymous because I spent many, many years doing alcohol, all sorts of alcohol, every single drink in the book. I was an occasional drinker. I had an occasion for every drink. And all sorts of drugs, the whole spectrum of the drugs, except for the new ones of today, I have a beautiful sponsor. I met her online. She was armed with the facts, and that's what I needed. I needed the facts. I have 3 beautiful sponsees. I work with women sponsees. I only take on 3 at a time, so I can give them my utmost attention at all times. And I fully surrendered to my higher power, the God of my understanding, on the 27th of November 2016. And that's been my cornerstone. That's been my foundation. But what I have realized is that my higher power and my recovery, they need to work together. I can't have one without the other. And I love the way you introduced the meeting, Karen, by us being spearheads of God's everlasting creation. And that's what it is, and for me, a spearhead is it's a spear, it's an iron bar. And those iron bars, they sharpen one another. And that's what we do in recovery. We sharpen one another, we learn from one another, each one teaches one. And, that's my mission today. That is my mission, to give away so freely what's been given to me. Yeah, so let's try and carry a message of depth and weight. It says in the doctor's opinion. You might notice that I'm from South Africa, but I'm originally British. And I've come back. I've been in Britain for the last 3 years. And basically, I came back as a carer. And these last 3 years have been the most difficult years of my 10 years in recovery, because I did live in and I was isolated and I was alone. And I wasn't doing much recovery. I wasn't going to face-to-face meetings. I wasn't doing much online. And my disease was doing push-ups in the background. And when it eventually got me to a stage of being restless, irritable, and discontent, which is all about me, myself, and I needed to get back into recovery. I needed to get back on track. I needed to get a new sponsor. I needed to have a new spiritual experience. And that's what I did. And, to be honest, it's only been the last 18 months that I'm back on track, because this disease can take me so off track. It can distract me with all the worldly clamors. And the interesting thing about it is, for me, those worldly clamors was chasing money, chasing my bank balance. It wasn't about drinking and drugging. There were so many drugs in those care placements. There was so much stuff lying around. And in my 10 years, I've not thought about taking a drink or a drug or having a cigarette or, sorry, I just want to put my timer on, or, it wasn't about picking up anything. It was, my disease had taken me to chasing the money. My disease will always take me to chase something other than the power, which is what I really need. My dilemma is lack of power. And I believe that, that people can look at it, I can look at it both ways. It was either when I came into the world and I was separated from my mother, or it was when I came into the world and I was separated from God, which is an easy way for me, to speak about the higher power, the creative intelligence, the underlying thread of all things, energy. It's so much easier for me to just call it God. But that, for me, is the key to this 12-step fellowship, is to reconnect me with a power that's greater than myself. I always thought that I was in control. I was always running on self. I was always manipulating, controlling, managing, to make everything perfect, to make me feel safe, to get me what I thought I needed. So what I'll do is I'll give you a little bit of history. It's quite interesting. I last did a care job in January, when I had gotten to that state of, beaten down, desperate, lonely, isolated. And for me, that's where the disease wants to get me. The disease does center in my mind, and it's an obsession for all things outside of myself. But the only thing that I need is within. The power is within me. And, I find that my creator, which is also another lovely word I like to use, my creator will always give me, or always put me in situations where I need to learn and I need to grow. And I was sitting in meditation the other day, and I haven't worked, like I said, for 8 months. And it came into my spirit that I need to make some extra money. And I was talking to my sponsee, and the next minute, when I looked on my phone at the end of my time with my sponsee, there was a care placement job for me. And it was in 2 weeks. And I went and I did the 2 weeks. And God was just showing me that I needed to actually kind of like pay penance for that January job, because I couldn't take care of myself. So I couldn't take care of the client. I had no God. God takes care of me. God takes care of us. I can't take care of myself, and I never have been able to. That's why I needed drugs. I needed alcohol. I needed outside solutions to fix an internal problem. And that doesn't work. So I've paid my penance. I walked out with my head high, made a little bit of extra cash, and I learned tolerance, in that job. I learned how to be loving and tolerant and kind, because it wasn't about that when I did the care work. It was about setting myself up, with money and a home and a car. And I obviously got distracted. So let's get back to the solution. I have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body today. And I say that because I need to keep in fit spiritual condition. I need to do this 12-step work on a daily basis because, like I say, I've only got a daily reprieve. When I woke up this morning, it's today. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow is not here yet. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And for me, a great example was COVID. We didn't know that was going to happen. So, today I've recovered. I've taken the steps to freedom from bondage of self. For me, this whole thing is about being in self-centered. What do I need? What can I get? What's going to fix me? So even though the disease is threefold, I like to always start off with the spiritual malady. And that's not having God. If I don't, or the power, not having the power, something higher than me. If I don't have power, then I've got a void in my soul. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do anything to fill that void to make me feel better. Because you know what? When I was growing up, I had this feeling of lack all the time. My dad was an alcoholic. He was always away making money. And when he came back, he never had any money. He used to drink. And then I felt isolated and abandoned all over again. And I remember when I could start working, as soon as, even before I started working, when I finished school, I just wanted to go out and work and make money and set myself up. So that was my whole thing, And my whole entire life, by doing that, I always was financially insecure. Even though I had money, I still felt I needed more. My mum, she was like in the olden days, we used to call it OCD, obsessive compulsive. She always had this thing about, where was my dad? What was my dad doing? And she was always obsessed about my dad. And I felt that there was neglect there, as a kid. I didn't feel loved and cared for. And my mum wasn't present. My dad wasn't present. So it's quite interesting that God actually made me, be a carer and taught me how to care for people and how to care for myself. I needed to learn self-care because I thought drugs and alcohol, were the solution, but they weren't. They were the problem. So yeah, I used, and I was constantly moving. With my dad's job, we were constantly moving all the time. So I was never a settled soul. So there's a fellowship that speaks about jails, institutions, and death. I'm going to start off with my first conviction, which was in 1997. And excuse me if I jump around a bit, but you know what? 30 years of active addiction, it's a lot to squash into 20 minutes and still give a message of solution. So I'm going to try my best, but it's because it's what's coming up for me now, and I like to keep my recovery current. So in 1997, I was in the peak of my addiction. I mean, like I said, drugs, alcohol, men, and I was going out with a guy. We were doing loads of drugs, loads of parties in South Africa. We have the outdoor psychedelic trance scene. My first drug, what I really enjoyed was LSD, because I wanted to know why I was brought up in this dysfunctional family, and I thought, wow, I'll take LSD and I'll, find out. I'll try and meet God. And then I met God at the end of the day, but it wasn't because of LSD, because that took me to hell. It took me to the pit of hell, in the end. It always starts off great, but in the end, it just doesn't work, And, I just want to say, for those that are new, this is a message of hope, and it's not about the war stories. It is about the hope of the 12 steps. It is about having faith, to step out from the fear of the unknown. That was a big thing for me. I wanted to know. I was always a seeker. I wanted to search. I wanted to find out. So anyway, I go to, I'm in Cape Town. My boyfriend's been arrested. I need to go and bail him out. And I think I'll just smoke a quick joint, so I can calm down before I go into the police cells to bail him out. And what happens? I get arrested. They want to lock me up, but they say to me, if I plead guilty, I can pay 100 Rand fine and I can go. And I thought, great, I'll do that. And I did that, not knowing that it was going to get me a criminal record. Anyway, that was the beginning of my 30th year. I was 30 at the time. I'm 57 now. And so I got my first criminal record in 1997 at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, I got my second. I didn't get a criminal record, but I got an arrest. I got arrested at the end of that year. The first arrest was 1 joint smoking. By the end of the year, was 10 kilograms. That was the progression of my disease. 10 kilograms got found in my car. I wasn't in my car, and it wasn't mine. And by the grace of God, I got off of 10 kilograms. But I got sent to treatment. I did 40 days in treatment, and that's when I heard the message of Alcoholics and Narcotics Anonymous at the time. But I came out of treatment, and I carried on for 12 years after that, picking up more, using more, traveling around the world, taking loads of drugs, going to parties. My life was just one big party, and I had fun. I enjoyed it. I had fun, until I didn't. Anyway, fast forward quite a bit to 2009. So I hadn't come into the rooms, at all in those times. 2009 was my first experience into Alcoholics Anonymous. I got arrested with 4 times over the limit drunk driving. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was desperate. I needed help. I cried out to God, help me, God. I promise you, the obsession to use and drink just vanished. I stayed in Alcoholics Anonymous for 4.5 years. I got a sponsor only at the very end of that period because my father passed away. And I needed something, and I got a sponsor, and this guy said he would help me. He was the only guy around at the time. But it didn't help. I went out. I wanted to party. I was bored after 4.5 years. And I promise you, I didn't want to use that whole lie detector thing. I didn't want to use. Within 48 hours, the smell of marijuana got to me. I picked up. The progression of the disease was huge. I was eating mushrooms out of the bag. I was taking LSD. I was having fun. I was justifying my using. And it ended 9 months later when I went to a party and I took a drop of LSD, and I was out there dancing, flying, and they switched the music off. And that was where I got stuck for 9 months. It took me 9 months to come down. I almost lost my mind. You guys, drugs are not the answer. I could have lost my mind, and that's a hell of a thing. It's all good and well losing your possessions, getting locked up, losing your family. I lost my marriage. But to lose my mind, that was really, really scary. My mind was telling me that I was working in a Nazi concentration camp. I was living in solitary confinement, and I was in an underground tomb. That's as far as you want to go, guys. Yeah, death, but I was still alive. Anyway, long story short, this is a program of recovery. I had to realize the unmanageability of what was going on. I had to realize I was powerless. I had to realize I wasn't God. I had to realize I was insane. You know, step one is the most crucial part of this recovery. I had to concede to my innermost being that I'm powerless, that I'm an addict, that my life is unmanageable. I was losing my mind. I was insane. I had no step three. I had no God. And I did that. I did that really, really, really quickly. And then what I want to talk about are the fears. You know, step four, I was in fear of everything. You know, those 100 forms of fear, that bewilderment, you know, no faith. And when I did my step four inventory, this time around, it was all about, like I said, it was all about the fear of the lack of money. I thought money was my solution, you know, because of my dad. You know, my dad was chasing money. He wasn't giving me love. I thought money was the solution. I didn't think it was love. I didn't think it was relationships. I had to do deep dives into step fours to realize that this is about relationship. It's about a relationship with a power that gives me everything that I need. And by realizing that, I could start having relationships in the rooms. I could start having relationships with you guys. You know, I'm divorced. I lost 2 kids in my active addiction. I don't have kids. You know, my kids are in heaven now. Long story short for another day. You know, I have God. I'm walking this path with God. I had to admit all of my defects of character to my sponsor, to my God. I had to pray that those things get removed. You know, I had to pray that my shortcomings get removed. You know, I don't have a family. You guys are my family. This is a worldwide organization. You know, all around the world, we're all the same, like Karen said. You know, we're from all different parts of the world, but we all have the same disease. I had to realize that this thing was an illness. This thing was a disease. I didn't get that. I didn't get that for a long, long, long time. I've only got that in the last 18 months, and I've been clean for 10 years, guys. This is not easy. You know, everybody says, oh, it's a simple program. It's not a simple program. You know, there might be the simple steps, but to do this stuff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, talk to my power, guide me, show me, help me. Do I do this? I need to take a breath. Do I do that? Pause, you know, slow down. I needed to slow down. My mind was racing. I was out there on LSD, flying, you know, with the angels. I needed to come back. I needed to ground. I needed to center. Thank God gave me a horse to do that. My horse was the first thing that I ever tapped into, the gratitude. Thank you, God, for that horse. That horse grounded and centered me and brought me back into the rooms. So I had to ask for forgiveness. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. You know, I treated a lot of people badly. I had to, you know, unforgiveness blocks me from God. I had to forgive myself at the end of the day. That took a lot. You know, that took a lot. I've even got the Post-it notes around my house, not only saying, God, your will be done, relieve me from the bondage of self, but also, you know, that thing, love your neighbor as yourself. I had to learn to love myself before I could learn other people. And you guys taught me that. You know, I want to thank everybody that listens out there, you know, that does this stuff, because it's this 12-step fellowship that taught me to love myself because of the love that you guys gave me. You know, I mean, God is an entity, and God is everywhere, and the power is everywhere, and it's the underlying force of creation. It's the creative intelligence. But you guys are my mirrors. I can't see myself. My eyes look at you. You know, I couldn't see myself. I could only see myself in you. So I want to thank you all for that. I needed to be restored. You know, I needed to align to reality. My reality was very, very different. I needed to remain in the presence of God, which means in the present. which means in the breath, which means in the moment. That's where God is. So now that I'm unemployed and I don't want to go back into caring because it isolated me, it kept me alone, it kept me afraid, it kept me in the disease. Now what's happening is I'm going to go and study. I wanted to study when I was 17, and my disease took that all away from me. Now at 57, 40 years of wandering around in the wilderness, I'm going to go and study, and I'm going to go and study something that I love. I'm going to study human and animal interaction with the psychology behind that, because I'm a horse whisperer. I love horses. And I'm going to use, this is from God now. God is showing me, God is teaching me, God is calling me to this. Not only the 12-step fellowship, not only God, the higher power, but horses to ground and center people out there that are still flying and out in the madness. I could hardly even have a conversation. So that is like a gift from God. So I've aligned myself to that calling, because let me just take a breath. It's so exciting. I applied for a job at the university to work in the horse therapy division, and they said to me I needed some sort of qualifications, and I forgot about it. And then the qualifications came around for this season, and now all of a sudden I'm going to get qualified to do a 3-year degree working at the Hartbury University, which is agricultural, where there's horses, and I want to help people. So step 10, I have to do this all the time. I have to keep checking. For me, that's the key. Inventory is the key. For me, and I'm going to wrap it up I'm going to wrap it up now in the last few minutes. For me, inventory is the key. I have to keep my conscience clear. I have to keep my head clear. I need peace of mind. I need peace of soul. If I'm rattling, then I'm in self. They call it restless, irritable, and discontent. Then I'm in self. If I'm at peace, I'm with God. So I have to continuously check my motives, make sure that I'm being honest, make sure I'm doing things for the right reasons, make sure that I'm doing everything out of love and for other people, not for myself. I need to do things for other people today. And, if I'm in self, I'll know it because I'm discontented. And then I immediately need to talk to my sponsor. I love the rapid step 10. You can do it quickly. It's a web page. It's automated. It shows me my defects that I need to ask God to remove. And then it shows me my assets that I need to ask God to show me how I need to be today. So always step 10, but always step 11, I need to be praying all the time. And for me, prayer is talking to God. It's having a conversation with God. All the time I'm talking to God. And then I need to be quiet, and I need to meditate, and I need to rest in God's presence so that I can hear God speaking to me. And then I need to make notes. And in my notes, I need to be obedient. I need to be obedient to what God is calling me to do. Not what I'm chasing, what God's calling me to do. And then the final key is step 12. The main key for me about this whole thing is step 12. It's about taking the next person through the steps. I didn't even speak about the book, but the book is the key. The book of Alcoholics Anonymous is the key. And it's the whole book. The stories in the back are lovely. But the whole book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first 164 pages, I need to take sponsees through that. I need to do it line by line. I need to help them because that book's complicated. Everything's in that book. The illness, the doctor's opinion, that explains the illness. Like I say, it took me a long time to get it. Anyway, I think my time is running up. I just want to be of maximum service to God. And I'm going to keep doing this as long as I'm alive. I'm going to keep carrying the message, And I thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope that somebody got something out of it. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Wow, what a journey. So many trials and tribulations and losses, and you're still clinging to your higher power, clinging to the horses, clinging to education, clinging to service and helpfulness. And that's really inspiring, you know. A lot of times people come into the rooms beat up and they hear somebody with a really gung-ho message of experience, strength, and hope, and everything's good, and I've got my higher power all the time, and fight up, and that's hard to hear for somebody who's had some bad losses or who's not so chipper. So in spite of all that, with the record, with the drugs, with the alcohol, with the loss of husbands, loss of children, should be comforted. You're here to tell the tale and to work with others. You said you take 3 sponsors a week and give them your all. Do you want to talk about how you work with others? Do you want to put your number in the chat as well, so people could reach out to you if they'd like to work with you, either as a sponsee or big book friend squad?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure if I'm breaking up or you're breaking up. Can you guys still hear me? Not sure if Karen's breaking up.
We can hear you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Emma. So my sponsees, I meet them twice a week online for 1.5 hour sessions at a time to take them through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, line by line. I also, I quite like working with face-to-face sponsees, because what we do is at our various meetings, after the meeting, we get together and we go out. You know, we go out for coffee, we go out for dinner, and we chat, and we get to know one another, and we go for walks. You know, these are lifelong relationships that I'm forming. And, I get to call them out on their bullshit when they want to bullshit me in the, online in the Hollywood squares, making sure everything's okay when it's not, So yeah, it's beautiful working with sponsees, and I only take on 3 at a time, and that's enough for me. Yeah. And what we do, just to let you know as well, is what we do as well is in the meetings, I encourage my sponsees to speak up and to share where they're at and to share their victories. I've got one sponsee at the moment. She doesn't like to read anything, and she doesn't like to share, and that's okay. And until she's ready, I'm not God. I can't force anybody to do anything. And what I've realized, it's a personal journey. But I'm there for them. I'm there to guide them, and that's what sponsorship has been all about for me. And to be there when they need a shoulder to cry on, or to be there when they want to share inventory with me, and to pray for them. To pray for them, and just to know that they're not alone.
Oh, that's such a perfect segue to my next question. You give them that fellowship and that positivity to realize their triumphs in recovery. What I'm hearing, if we put in big book speak, you practice a path of love and tolerance of others, and helping them not feel alone. Even though our big book says, it is better to be alone, God alone on the broad highway, rather than someone who won't understand, It talks about that in steps 5, 6, and 7, right? That we take our inventory, we take our character defects to someone who will understand. Tell me what you did. You spoke about a lot of loss. I've also been there. I'm a widow with 6 children, and I've also been remarried and divorced. So, and there are other people on this line that I know have gone through divorce. How do you work your program when the lonelies come in, when you're feeling alone, lonely. Everybody has some, I don't know what your character defect is. Jealous, self-pitying. What do you do? How do you, as our big book says, prevent yourself from drifting?
Yeah, that's a good question, Karen, because my character defect, or I like to look at it as sort of more my fears. I always had a fear of being alone and isolated, and afraid. And I can see, like how I've shared, is that's where the disease wants to get me. It wants to get me in that space so that I need something to fix me, to make me feel better. And that's when I immediately reach out to somebody and offer help to get me out of myself. I reach out to my sponsees. I call somebody who might come into my spirit. I've got lots of women that, lots of friends back in South Africa, that I miss, and we walked a path together in recovery. And sometimes I'll think, oh, I need to get hold of her, and I'll get hold of her, and it'll be exactly, what she needed, but it'll be exactly what I needed. So it's connection. It's about building connection. And if that doesn't happen, there's Zoom meetings all over the world. I get onto a Zoom meeting and, I just connect. And that's the key, is connection, not disconnection. I was so disconnected. And it's funny how those fears played out. My biggest fear was being isolated, alone, and afraid. And that's what happened in the end with the care work, because I was chasing the money. I was chasing the wrong thing instead of relationships. I need relationships today, healthy ones. Thank you.
Amazing. Someone put a question in the chat, my love. Okay, we have a question about how you were able to forgive yourself. Yeah, that was really poignant how you spoke about putting notes all over your house and forgiving yourself. I'd like for you to talk about that as well. Great question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. Forgiveness for me, it comes in with my higher power. My higher power has forgiven me for everything that I've done and that I'm still going to do. And that's by the grace of God. That's the God that I understand. I'm human. I'm having a human experience. I'm dealing with, and I'll call it like the evil of the world. I'm not from this world. I'm from the heavenly realms. I'm stardust. But I'm living in a human reality, and that's that I need forgiveness, because I'm not always going to be on the right track. I can drift in this world. There's so much distraction, and that it just, I don't watch the news. If you look on the news, it's all just fear-based. And that's been my biggest thing. I lived 100 forms of fear, but this is about having faith, and I believe. I can't go and do something that's going to cause people harm and say, "Oh, I'm forgiven, it's okay." I can't do that. But sometimes, my head might want to take me to a place where I need forgiveness for my thoughts. For me, this is about my thinking. My thinking is not always right because I have a defective character. I'm a work in progress. But the forgiveness comes in, to answer the question, is my God forgives me. My God, I only learn through my mistakes. So as long as I'm learning and I'm asking God to guide me, and then I'm growing, into more of God's likeness, and I'm growing spiritually, And I know that my God will forgive me because now I'm in alignment again with God. Then I can forgive myself. I don't want to beat myself up. I did that in the past. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Another question. Oh, it's showing me that there's one, but there isn't. I'd love to hear about your daily regimen, your prayer, your meditation, daily amends as they come up. Yes. So I don't get out of bed until I've connected with my higher power, because, and that's why I wanted to talk about, it's all good and well having 10 years of recovery, but when I wake up in the morning, I'm in an unrecovered state, because it's a new day. I don't know what this day is going to bring. So as soon as I wake up, I'm like, yay, I'm alive, because theoretically I should be dead. So I'm like, thank you, God, that I'm alive. It's a new day, What mysteries are you going to bring for me today, God? Who can I help today, God? Thy will be done. Relieve me of the bondage of self so that I can better do your will, God. And I do say prayers, I am a Christian and I say the Lord's Prayer. The moment, that's my first prayer. I say the Lord's Prayer. And then I say the Serenity Prayer. And then I say the Jabez Prayer. And it's a beautiful prayer. And I'd love to just say it quickly. It's, thank you for blessing me with your will, God. Thank you for extending my territory and expanding my border to where you want me to be, God. Thank you that you keep your hand of greatness in every area of my God, of my life, God. And thank you for delivering me from evil, God. And then I'm like, yay, what are we going to do, God? And then I get up, I make myself a cup of coffee, and I come with my journal, and I sit in my quiet space. And then I just listen. I'm quiet. I've got a beautiful garden. I've got birds. I've got a beautiful bougainvillea growing, and I just sit quiet. And then what comes into my spirit, that small, still voice, I jot down, and I jot down. And then I be obedient. I have a look and I prioritize, and then I get obedient and I answer the call. Thank you. Amazing. Yes, we addicts are undisciplined. I'm hearing you say that. You let God discipline you every day, and you pray and journal and sit in your quiet place. I also have a place by my window in my new home with a beautiful view of Jerusalem and different holy sites, and I drink my coffee there. And it's like I have this low chair, so it like feels like surrender. This low chair from Nikki M, like surrendered. Like, okay, I am no longer running the show. Your will, not mine, be done. I got so much I need to do. It's not humanly possible. God, help me. Help me see, first things first, second things second. We addicts are undisciplined. If you're feeling that you're a mess, you're all over the place, you're juggling, motherhood, work, personal life, self-care, trying to get in shape, trying to get to exercise, your parents, if you're sandwiched like me, of elderly parents, young children, coworkers, that's the only way that has worked for me, letting God discipline God. I'm going to write this big fat to-do list, and I'm going to ask you to show me the way. Your will, not mine, be done. I can't, you can. That is a full prayer. God help is a full prayer. Okay, great. Well, Laura has her hand up, so let's check her out first there. And
good morning, everybody. My name.
So we'll do Laura, and then we'll talk. Emma, I guess, stated that she's so undisciplined right now, so you can talk about that, and then you'll take Brindy's question. So I'm just going to shut off. So Laura, please, we'll do Laura, Emma D, and Brindy.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Laura. I am an addict, and I am absolutely delighted that the coincidence of the Fellowship of Recovery worldwide. And on Saturday, I went to a meeting in a town that I don't live in, and I had the pleasure of meeting Sam. And I have dialed into an online meeting this morning, and our wonderful face and story and powerful message of recovery I hear again. So if God's not saying something for you and I, Sam, that we need to kind of be friends, then, you know, putting in different cities and two places in a week. But that, you know, your message is wonderful. I love your vulnerability, that this isn't easy. Life isn't easy in recovery when, you know, I spent 30 years in addiction, you know, a daily user of alcohol, drugs, people, anything that would change how I feel. And it's not like that today. And so it's wonderful, you know, that from Jerusalem to, you know, where you are in the south, I'm now in the north of England, and we can and share the message of recovery, that we don't have to live in the insanity that, well, I'll speak for me. It was dark. It was really dark. And I shared on Saturday, and, you know, the jails, institution and death, 7 trips to rehab facilities. My last debacle ended up within me in prison, and I haven't used a day since then. And the lowest point for me just kept getting lower. You know, the yets just kept getting worse, and the consequences just got worse. And then when I surrendered to, you know, this program, it's changed my life. And it's wonderful. And to hear your message again today, Sam, I just had to say hello, because when I turned it on, I was like, oh my goodness, I saw you Saturday. So I'm going to write your number down. I'll put my number in the chat. And thank you again for hearing a wonderful, vulnerable and powerful message. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, we were in the same face-to-face meeting on Saturday. Yeah, God is amazing. And now you're in the north. It's so beautiful. You know, this is the thing about being in alignment. You know, and I didn't quite get to the point of part of my step 12, you know, and being of service. I've joined the hospitals and institutions part of the service. And, you know, I was lucky enough not to get a prison sentence for that 10 kilograms of weed. And I was in there on Monday. I went into the women's prison to carry the message, and I also host the meetings there. And we're starting now to do sponsorship with the women in prison. And I have such a heart for those women. And we're starting to do it. We have to write to them, and they have to write to us. So we're going to be doing sponsorship through the big book, through questions, through answers, and just helping these women. And at the end of that meeting, because I remember you spoke about prison, Laura, at the end of that meeting, I had 8 women coming up to me to give me their names and prison numbers to sponsor them. And that for me is the heart of recovery. Yeah, so thanks for coming on and sharing that with me. I see there's a question in the chat. Please, can you share a bit about your amends as well as your step 10s? Yes, I will. You know, when I came over here, and it's like I say, you know, it's a fresh amend that I had to make with my sponsor, because a lot of during COVID, I was here in the UK 2003, 4 and 5, because I am originally British, and it was the height of my addiction, and I caused a lot of financial damage to myself. And during COVID, I got convicted by my God to come back and to actually sort out my affairs in London. I decided that was what I was going to do. And when I came back, it was mainly to sort out my financial amends. But it came up that I needed to sort out an amends with somebody that I had actually tarnished his reputation at work, to get to my own selfish ends. And I didn't want to get hold of the man because he's married. And, I didn't, and it was like, it's 17 years later and this amend came up. So what I had to do was I had to write it out and discuss it with my sponsor. And then I had to read that man the letter and humbly apologize, for tarnishing his reputation. And then I burnt it. And that's gone now. And one of the keys I will say with this recovery is I've got to let that go now. I can't keep carrying all that baggage around with me. This is about letting the baggage go. I want to be rocketed into the fourth dimension. I can't be carrying all that baggage. But until I accept my past and until I forgive myself and others for my past, only then can I give it to God. And only then can God take it, and only then can I actually let it go and leave it there. I don't want to be taking it back. And then I get rocketed into the fourth dimension because I'm not carrying all that stuff. And then as well as my step 10 process, like I said, there's a tool on the website, and it's rapidstep10.com. And that's what I do. So before I go to bed, if I'm not at peace, I need to do a rapidstep10.com. And it's an amazing tool because I can say to myself, okay, I said to somebody in the meeting something that I regret, and I punch it into the rapid step 10. And then it comes up with all these defects of character automatically. And then I get to choose them. And I can choose, I was selfish. I was cocky. I was afraid. I was full of fear. I was rude. And then it automatically gives me the corresponding assets. And it says, I should have been more loving and tolerant. That's it, Emma, well done. I should have been, more forgiving. I should have been walking in faith instead of fear. And it gives me all the corresponding assets automatically. And then it gives me the prayer, Lord, please take away my difficulties. Remove my defects of character, remove my shortcomings. And then I can read all those defects again. And then it says, and replace them with the assets. And then I can read all the assets. And then it closes with something like, your will be done. Thank you, Father. And then every morning I read that until it's gone, and it will go. Eventually it'll go. And eventually it'll make me realize I need to walk in those assets and not those defects. And that's why I say this is a lifelong process. So thank you for your question.
That's really inspiring. And I'm so glad you get out of that, because I sometimes do the rapid step 10, or I saw, because it populates the fields automatically, I saw that it made me kind of go in robotic mode, like, okay, I'm just ticking check boxes, but I'm not feeling where was I at fault, where was I to blame. And I find sometimes in my codependency that sometimes I'll do a step 10 and it won't go away. Sometimes one of my kids is really aggravating me, or a coworker has really been intimidating or bullying, and it just won't go away. Have you had that happen? And, I realized that just the only thing that helps working with others, when all else fails, working with others, it talks about that in the big book when it says when sex is troublesome, working with others. It talks about that in the sex inventory. Can you relate to that? About when your step 10, not a rapid step 10, not a slow step 10, not a side step 10. But nothing is getting rid of that, nasty stain in your soul.
Yeah. So obviously, I share those rapid step 10s with my sponsor. And if it's not going away, then I need to go back and do a step 4, because then I need to do a deep dive, into my past. Like, where did that come from? Because that's obviously the calling to the healing at that moment that I need to really go and have a look at. I need to go and see where that behavior came from. I need to go and rewire my brain. And only God can do that. I need to rewire my behavior. So I need to go and do a step 10. I need to go and see, like, what is the cause of my problem, and then God's amazing, because God will show me, like, where it came from. God will show me what it affected. Was it my self-esteem? Was it my finances? And then God will show me what was my part in that. And then God will show me, what do I need to do better? And that's the deep dive of step 4. That's why the step 4s are so amazing. And I don't need to have any fear around step 4. I can have absolute faith. And you know what I need to do when I do a step 4 is I need courage, because those are all fears. For me, fear becomes a resentment, and then a resentment becomes a hurt. And then it becomes a fear again, and then a resentment, and then a hurt. And then it's a vicious cycle until I can break that chain. And only God can do that. I've heard it in the rooms before. I'm not in the results business. God controls the outcome. So I need to really look at that, and I need to write as much as possible about that particular incident in the past, where that fear came from, and who I got resentment towards, and why I got resentment, and how did I act out? Was my behavior bad? And I really need to just write, because I need to get it out of the darkness of my mind into the light of recovery. And then what I need to do is I need to read it to somebody, because when I read it to my sponsor, I can hear it. And when I hear it, it goes into my being, and then there's a shift and something can happen. So I hope that helps.
Amazing. Let's see. What else do we have here in the chat? Okay, we've got 3 minutes left. Do you want to share any final words of wisdom, I guess, for the newcomer, for the old timer, and then just pray us out?
Yeah, I do. For me, for the newcomer, I think the key is, it's that how it works. And the how it works in a small, easy way is the H is honesty. The O is open-mindedness, and the W is willingness. I've got to be really honest and not ashamed. God also took all my guilt, my shame, and my condemnation. I don't have to carry that. I just need to be honest, because I want to recover. I want to get better. So I really need to be honest about my past. And I can assure you that you're not the only one out there, newcomers. You're not the only one that's done whatever you've done. There's thousands of us around the world that have done the same thing. So you can be honest about that stuff, or honest how people have, what they've done to you, because we've had a lot of stuff done to us. And then to be open, because my mind was so fixed. I need to be open to new ideas. I need to be open to suggestions. And then to be willing. I need to be willing to change. I need to be willing to learn. I need to have humility and tolerance. So I will thank you for that. I will close us off. Let me just find it with the beautiful St. Francis prayer. I love the St. Francis prayer. So, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. If anybody wants to be in touch with our Sam, her number is in the chat. Please hit her up. If any of you guys need sponsorship or fellowship, reach out to Sam or I. If any of you are covered through the 12 steps, I implore you to WhatsApp me right this second and let me know that you're ready to share on the Afro-Euro Reco12. Sam, this was beautiful. You are beautiful. All you fellows on this call, you are all beautiful, each one endowed with a special light, intelligent agent spearhead of God's everlasting creation. Please spread your light and be contented knowing we're a part of the forces of good in the world. This is for today. Thank you all and bless you all. I love you.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching for glimmers of light, feet still on the ground. I can still be found, standing still.
My wings are torn and tattered, but I know I still can fly. I may not soar unfettered, I may not rise too high.
Recorded in the book of life and bind it with the seal.